Hey guys, it's me, and today I am here with a video that has been long awaited by me, at least. I don't know if you guys have been looking forward to this video, but I have been looking forward to this video, and today I am going to be showing you guys my favorite music releases of 2020. And today I'm going to be showing you guys my top 5 favorite EPs of the year and my top 10 favorite albums of the year. Now, I did one of these videos last year for 2019, so if you want to see that video, I'll try to remember to link it somewhere, maybe in the description box below, maybe at an end tile, I'm not sure. I'll link it somewhere for you guys if you want to go check that out to see what it was that I really enjoyed last year. But in this video, we are going to be talking about this year. But before I dive into this video, I do want to give a few disclaimers. First of all, this is going to be a very long video, so go ahead and get comfortable, have yourself something to snack on, something to drink, because we're probably going to be here for a little while. I'm a rambler, I know this, I'm aware of it, so this will probably be a longer video, so just be prepared for that. Second of all, I am very much a metalhead, as the title of this video would suggest. There are some releases in my rankings that are not metal releases, so I know this title is a little bit clickbaity. Technically, I wasn't lying. My top 10 albums of the year are all metal releases, so yeah. But I very much am a metalhead, so majority of the releases that you're going to be seeing here are from different metal bands, so be prepared for that. And then lastly is that these are all based on my personal tastes and opinions. If you feel as if an album should have made it onto my list or shouldn't be on my list or should be in a different place in the rankings, that's all on you. This is all based on my personal tastes and opinions and how I feel about each of these releases. Alright, so without further ado, let's go ahead and hop on into this video. But before we do so, if you guys are new here to my channel, don't forget to hit subscribe. And also while you're down there, definitely give this video a thumbs up because that'll help me out a lot. All my links are down in the description box below. And yeah, let's do this. Alright, so before we actually start talking about the rankings, I do want to address some things in terms with the rankings and the releases I'm going to be talking about. So I compile a list of all the releases that are coming out that I want to listen to or that I have listened to that have came out during the year, and then I give them their rankings and everything. And there are 4 different statuses that a release can fall under. So you have the status of that I listened to but I didn't like you, so you're no longer on the list. A 2-star ranking is a release that I enjoy, but it's not good enough for me to be considered a favorite. Like, it's good enough for me to enjoy it and to like it, but it's not like something that I am absolutely in love with and obsessed with. There might be like 1 or 2 songs out there in the release that I'm really into, but that's about it. And then we have a 3-star ranking. A 3-star ranking is a release that I thoroughly enjoyed and has the potential to be a favorite album of the year or a favorite release of the year. And then lastly, we have the favorites, and obviously that one's pretty self-explanatory. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is because if you want to see the full list of releases that I listened to, minus the ones that did not make it onto the list period because I listened to them and didn't like them, check the links down in the description box below. I made Tumblr posts going over everything, so if you want to see everything that I enjoyed over the year 2020 when it comes to new music releases, definitely check those links out below. Also, in a similar vein, some of you guys might already know my rankings because I did post my rankings on Instagram, so if you follow me there, you probably have already seen these as well. But in this video, you guys are going to get a more deeper discussion into these releases. So we're going to start out with EPs because this is going to be very quick and easy to go through because there's only about 5 releases on my list, and we're going to start out with rank number 5, and that is EP8 by Qveen Herby. So I've talked about this in a few of my Qveen Herby reaction videos, but I mentioned that EP8 was the start of me getting back on board with Qveen Herby. Ever since like EP5, I've kind of started going a little bit downhill with Qveen Herby. Not that the music wasn't good to me anymore, it's just that it was becoming a little stale. There wasn't anything really that exciting and like different and innovative happening with the music, and so I kind of started like slipping off a bit. But then EP8 came and rekindled my love. This is such a fun EP, and I really do believe that this EP came out at the right time, just simply because when this EP came out, it was in the early stages of quarantine during the pandemic. Obviously, things are still going on. We're still in quarantine, or at least I am. At the same time though, like in the early stages of the pandemic and of quarantine, a lot of people were going through it because it's just like that first initial, like, everyone is actually taking this shit seriously wave that was happening. A lot of people were getting depressed and just needed some fun music, and this EP is exactly that. It is a very fun release. All the songs on here are a lot of fun. There aren't that many like extremely serious songs on this album. There aren't that many like serious in tone songs on this release, and I really do enjoy it, and so it's just a really good release to put on if you want to have a good time. And my two favorite songs off the EP are Self-Aware featuring Duran Bernard. I still don't know how to pronounce their name. And my favorite track off the EP is Dump Truck. Coming up at number 4 is A Life Without from Aeonian Sorrow. So for those of you who don't know about Aeonian Sorrow, they are a funeral death doom metal band, and I really do love this band. This band I was very excited about when they came out. I think it was in 2018. I think was when this band came out. It was either 2018 or 2017. It was one of those 2 years when this band came out, and I was really excited for it because I had recently discovered Luna Obscura, which is Gogo Malone's first band, or at least like a band that she became known for at first. Now she is in Aeonian Sorrow. I don't know about the whereabouts of Luna Obscura. It still says that they're active on the Metal Archives, but they haven't released anything in a very, very long time. So I don't know what's going on there, but Aeonian Sorrow is obviously still active because they released an EP this year, and it is a really great EP. Something that I really enjoy about this EP though is the fact that even though this is a funeral doom band, it's not super drony. That's something that I tend to not really like about funeral doom bands. There's nothing wrong with drony music, it's just that for me it's hard for me to get into it because it's just so drug out and just so atmospheric and ambient that it just doesn't do enough for me. But honestly, there's only about one song that gets kind of drony, but even then it's not that drony. So I really love that about this EP. And in true Aeonian Sorrow fashion, this release is just very dark, dreary, haunting, depressing, and I absolutely love it. My two favorite songs off this EP are The Endless Fall of Grief and My Solitude. Coming up at third place is In Portrait from Eklipse. Eklipse is a band that I have talked about here on my channel. I did a reaction video to their cover of Weak Fantasy by Nightwish, which by the way, I got a comment on that video that really irked me a little bit, and it was from someone saying that they were glad that nobody was singing the song. Fuck you. I've talked about this before. I do not like Nightwish stans whatsoever. I don't like them. I don't like you. You can go away. Don't be so gatekeepery with their music. I was really excited when I found out that they had new music coming out because the band had gone quiet for a very long time, and this is a band that I really do enjoy. They're a classical string quartet, and I've seen them live. I saw them live at the Silverthorne North American tour in 2013. Back at the Masquerade, and I actually have a signed poster that I got from that show because I had a VIP ticket and got to meet Camelot, and that was a lot of fun. But Eklipse's set was so special to me. I mean, obviously Camelot were amazing, and I also got to see Delain perform for the first time, and we all know how I feel about Delain. They're my favorite band of all time. But I was so excited to see a new release coming from Eklipse. This EP is stellar. It is so beautiful, and I just absolutely love it, and I'm so happy that these ladies are back. It's also exciting to know that like this band nearly never came back. Linda, the cellist of Eklipse, she actually commented on my reaction video to Weak Fantasy, talking about like what went down with the band and the fact that she is the only remaining original member of the band, so everyone else that's currently in the band, they're new members, and it's wild to think that this band nearly never came back. and I hope that one day I could see them live again. I did watch a video that they posted onto their YouTube channel where they did like an online concert. I watched that and it was just so much fun because they performed like a couple songs that they performed on the Silverthorn North American tour, and it just took me back, and it's just, I love this band so much. I hope you guys check them out and love them as much as I do, because they're just absolutely wonderful. And my two favorite songs off the EP are Thought Contagion, which is a cover by Muse, and Weak Fantasy, which, like I mentioned earlier, is a cover by Nightwish. We're almost done with the EPs. We're on number 2 now, and that is Goodybag by Netta. Yes, a metalhead enjoying Eurovision. I know. I've talked about Eurovision a few times here on my channel, but I haven't like explicitly talked about a Eurovision artist, like someone who actually has performed at Actually, no, that's a lie. Done Loboda reaction videos, so... Well, a Loboda reaction video. I did a video where I reacted to a bunch of songs of hers. I would love to do other reaction videos to her songs, it's just that they tend to get blocked every time I try to post them. And I do apologize for like lighting changes. It's kind of cloudy today. I was shocked that this EP actually happened though, because of the songs that are on it. Like 4 of the songs on this EP were singles that were released long before this EP was released. And one of those songs is actually the song that I discovered Netta through, which I feel is the same for a lot of people out there, and that is through Toy. So Toy is a song that Netta performed representing Israel in 2018 in Eurovision, and I actually got the win for them that year as well. And so I really do enjoy the song. It's a whole lot of fun. The songs on this EP are a lot of fun. They're campy, they're fun, it's a great time, and there are so many good songs off of it. And my 2 favorite songs off this EP, although I love Toy, Toy has had its moment, so I'm not including it on my favorites songs off the EP. So my 2 favorite songs off of it are Basa Sababa and Cuckoo, which I love that song so much because it is so different compared to every other song that I've heard from her. Before we get into talking about my favorite EP of 2020, let's look at the honorable mentions. These are the releases that had the potential to be a favorite EP of the year, but sadly did not make it onto my rankings. Doesn't mean that they're bad, it just doesn't mean that they made it. Even though they didn't make it onto my rankings, definitely check them out anyways because they're all absolutely amazing and wonderful. But without further ado, let's check out number 1, which is Samael by the Big Jazz Duo. Now don't let the name of this band deter you from them. This is a symphonic deathcore band that I discovered a couple of years ago. I can't remember how it was that I discovered this band. I think it was just through like a recommended video on YouTube most likely. And it was in the time frame when I started getting into like metalcore and deathcore bands. I love this release so much. I didn't expect to love this release as much as I do. It's such a powerhouse of a release. It's full of so much energy. It's so intense. Like the only low points are like the transitional periods between songs, and when a song is going, it is fucking going. So much energy, like it's chaotic and it's intense, and I love the production on it so much, and I highly recommend you guys to check out this release. It's so much fun. It's such a good release, and I just absolutely love and adore it. And my 2 favorite songs off the EP are Red Pyramid and Fall of Vatiel. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that correctly. I do not know. Now let's talk about albums. This is what you guys are most excited for. So coming up at number 10 of my favorite albums of 2020 is a release that I have a physical copy of. If I have any physical releases to show, I will pop them up and like show them to you guys. I have 4 that are on my rankings that I have physical copies for. And the first one is Human Nature by Nightwish. Okay. Don't come for me, Nightwish stans, but just be glad that they made it onto my list, okay? Because this album was tied. A 3-way tie for 10th place. The other 2 releases that could have made it to be my number 10 on this list were The Farthest Shore from After Time and Sawayama from Rina Sawayama. Now, originally when this album was first released and when it first came out, it was during the first half of the year, and like I create like a rough image of how things are looking like when it comes to my favorite releases of the year. This album actually was my second favorite album of the year at the time, but it has since forth dropped tremendously, but it's still on my top 10 ranking. And the only reason why this one made it onto my top 10 rankings isn't because I wanted to make sure that I didn't offend the Nightwish stans by having it be an honorable mention. No, I've already pissed off the Nightwish stans enough with saying that Nightwish is overrated, which I still stand by, and I will say again, being overrated is not a bad thing. It just simply means that you're overrated. Because I can also say that Epica is a really great band, but they are also becoming overrated. And same thing goes for Within Temptation. I love all of these bands, but it doesn't deny the fact that they are overrated. Just like I also know that Netta is overrated, but I still love and enjoy her music, and her music is really great. So, yeah. Deal with it. Enough of being negative, let's talk about the good things and why I love this album. The thing that I love about this album is actually something that I noticed that a lot of people don't like about this album, and then it's the fact that this album is such a massive departure for Nightwish. It is a very big departure. They made so many changes with this release, and I just love that so much. They put a heavier emphasis on the symphonic element with this release. It still very much feels like a Nightwish album in my opinion, because it still has like that fantasy, dreamlike, whimsical feel to it, but it's gone in a very different direction, and they're putting a bigger emphasis on the symphonic element, I feel, with this release. Not only is it a big difference in terms of the orchestral presence and the production on the orchestrations and the writing of them, but it's also very different in the sense that there is actually no choir on this release. I know some of you might beg to differ when it comes to songs like, say, like Shoemaker, but truth be told, there is no choir on Shoemaker. If you pay close enough attention, you will hear that it's the same voices recorded multiple times over and over and over again and just layered on top of one another. You can doubtfully tell that at the very end of the song because the audio peaks a lot, and that is something that is very common when you layer the same voice over itself multiple times in a row. I know this because when I do my own vocal covers and I create choirs, it's only my voice creating the choirs. So I'm very well aware of like what can happen when you create your own choirs and you layer your own voice on top of itself far too many times. And also, again, when you listen to it and you pay close attention to it, you can tell that it's like Floor's voice over and over and over again, and obviously there's a man's voice in there as well. I'm not entirely sure whom it might be. There might be multiple men's voices on it, but for the most part, when it comes to the female voice, it is strictly Floor. And I actually really like the fact that they changed it up that dramatically there with taking out the choir. Not saying that like the choir element to Nightwish wasn't ever good, but it's good seeing things go in a very different direction. And the biggest point that I could give for this album going in a very different direction has to deal with the production yet again, and that is they finally changed the sound of their fucking guitars. Oh my god, that is one thing that I love about this album. After so many years, they have finally changed the sound of their guitars. I think the oldest release that I can think of where the guitars had that same sound is probably Century Child. Maybe even before that. For releases over the span of 13 years, they have had the same sounding guitars on all of their releases. At least 13 years. And they finally changed it with this release, and I'm so happy for it because it just breathes in new life to their sound. And I feel as if this is the type of direction that they wanted to go in with Endless Form's Most Beautiful, but because they were trying to like play things far too safe and try to like ease people into this transition and just not dive right on in like some bands tend to do, I feel as if that's like a big reason why Endless Form's Most Beautiful did not do well for me whatsoever, because for me personally that album is an absolute dud. Like, I only really enjoy but 2 songs off of it. I can listen to some of the other songs off of it and can like enjoy it and everything, but truthfully speaking, I only truly love but 2 songs off that album, and those are The Greatest Show on Earth and Weak Fantasy. I only am judging this release based off of the first disc because this is, to an extent, a double album. It's a double album in the sense that, like, the first disc you have like your typical Nightwish album, and then the second disc is just a 30-minute orchestral score, and I have only listened to that part all the way through, but I think once or twice. There is one song off the album that I don't really care for, and that is Harvest, because that song right there is a dud for me because it just sounds far too similar to like all their other folky type of songs. I do appreciate the fact that Troy took the lead on that song. I really do like that aspect of the song. But I mean, in terms of like writing and production, it's nothing new. And I feel as if it's a little bit too close to what they have always done. And if you're gonna change so dramatically and have like a song that's like so typical, because all their folk songs, to me at least, sound the same or extremely similar to one another, I really wish that they would have done something a little bit differently. Like, what's that song called? How's the Heart, I believe is what it's called. Yeah, How's the Heart. That song has like a folky element to it, but it sounds a lot more fresh because it's not folky all the way through. It's kind of like I Want My Tears Back from Imaginarium. It has that folk element to it, but it doesn't run through the entire song. Overall though, I really did enjoy this release, and my 3 favorite songs off of it are Tribal, Noise, and of course, Shoemaker. Coming up in 9th place is Diamonds by The Birthday Massacre. I was shocked, okay? I was very shocked that I love this release as much as I do. I'm not gonna lie, like, I've fallen off of The Birthday Massacre over the last few years. Like, they've had like several good songs off of their previous albums since Pins and Needles, but overall the albums just as a whole never really did it for me. But this album, I don't know what it is, but I love this album so much. Even though it is quite similar to like, I'd say like their previous 2 releases, I think. But this album is just so good. It's just so good. The production on it is really nice. It's almost as if like they've been trying to find like a new groove, and they really found it with this release, and I really love it. Comparing this release to say like Pins and Needles or Violet, which those are the 2 full-length albums that I am the most familiar with them, because those are like prior to this release like the only albums that I fully 100% loved. Like, those albums in my opinion are like Chef's Kiss, Kiss the Butthole and Explode. This album is now in that same category, and I just love it so much. It's so beautiful. I love how ambient and chill it is, and how they play with shoegaze a good bit on this release, and it's just so different. Like, you only hear Chibi singing with like a stronger tone in her voice, but on maybe like 1 or 2 songs, the rest of the songs on the album she sings quite softly and quite pretty, and it's just so different for them. It creates such a beautiful and lovely atmosphere that I just love so much from these guys now. And yes, it would be nice to be able to hear like a stronger tone come from Chibi's voice, but at the same time it's just like, with the direction that their instrumentals are going in now, her singing in a much stronger tone would probably not do the music justice anymore. Like, when they started out, they were very much like a gothic metal dark wave type of band, and now they're in a more like dark wave shoegaze gothic rock metal type band, and I just really love where things are going right now, and hopefully like the next release I'll feel just as happy and excited about it as I am with this one. And my 3 favorite songs off this release are Run, Parallel World, and Crush. Coming up at number 8 is A Time Called Forever by Anilo Projekt. So Anilo Projekt is actually a band that I discovered this year. I discovered them through their record label, which I believe is Pride and Joy Records, I believe is their label. And they posted a music video for the title track, A Time Called Forever. And I decided to check it out, and I was blown away. This is a stellar album. Not a single dud on this album, but the songs that are amazing are fucking brilliant in my eyes. It definitely skews more towards power metal. It's like a symphonic progressive power metal band, but they definitely skew more towards power metal, which is shocking to me that I love this release so much, yet it skews towards power metal, because I've talked about this a few times before in the past, but it is a bit harder for me to get into power metal these days. I used to listen to a lot of power metal bands back in the day, but now as time has gone by, I don't generally listen to too many of them because the production is just far too similar to other power metal bands that exist, and there's just not a whole lot of differentiation between them. But even though this band definitely skews more towards power metal, the fact that there's that prog element to their sound, I think reels me back in. And also their frontwoman's voice. Oh my god. I was so shocked by her voice. That first line of hers in the title track of Time Called Forever, I was immediately hooked. Because it's just like, their male vocalist, like, he opens up the song with a line and then she follows him up and everything, and her voice is just so deep. I say it's deep. It's deeper from what I'm used to hearing from women within the metal scene and in the power metal scene for that matter, but it's like, it's deeper, it's got a lot of warmth to it, and it's got so much power in it. And then I later find out that she can go full-blown mezzo-soprano as well, because she doesn't go full-blown mezzo-soprano all the time, and it's usually only but for like short bursts that it happens on this album. Her voice is so good. Her voice is just so wonderful, and I'm just blown away. This release is just absolutely amazing. I definitely need a physical copy of this album because I love it. I love it so much. I need physical copies of all my favorite releases in general, but this album is just, I really want a physical copy of it because I listen to this album a lot. If you were to base like my favorite albums based on plays, this album should be ranked a lot higher, because I've listened to this album a whole lot. My favorite songs off of it are Back to You, Walk Alone, and the title track, A Time Called Forever. Coming up at number 7 is Qassam by Aeternam. This band is another discovery that I made this year, and I learned about them through Mobsoon. She is a model, belly dancer, which is how I discovered her, is through her belly dance videos of her performing to metal music. And then she is also a singer now. She's in a band called Akath, and they only have 2 songs out right now. But she was featured in, I think, 2 music videos that Aeternam has done for this release for Qassam, and she was featured in them, and I learned about them through one of the music videos that she is in, which is the title track, Qassam. I fell in love instantly. It's so good. Like, I am a sucker for oriental metal bands, and this is such an intense release. They're a oriental death metal band, and it's so intense, so high energy. Fucking chorus to Qassam. Bruh! It is so intense. It is so heavy, and it's just wild. I love it. This release can definitely skew along the lines of black death metal at times. I've seen some comparisons between this band and Behemoth, which I can't really confirm that or not, because I'm not gonna lie, it's extremely difficult for me to get into Behemoth for some reason. I don't know what it is. I just really struggle with getting into them. I've enjoyed like some of their songs, but for the most part I tend to not really like a lot of their stuff. But I really want to get into their stuff because it's just like, I really like Nurgle. I really like him. I find him to be very fascinating. Also, he's fine as hell, but that's besides the point. After falling in love with the title track, I decided to give this album a listen, and I was just blown away. Like, this album is just so intense and in your face throughout the entirety of it, and it's just wonderful. It's such a great metal album. I'm so glad that I have a physical copy of this release because, like I said, it's such a good one. And in the beginning, like in the early part of my rankings, this album did rank a lot higher. It did drop a little bit, but not too much. My 3 favorite songs off the album are Qassam, Buena Universi, and Hanan Pacha. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that one correctly because I do not know. Also, if you want to hear some beautiful cleans from their frontman, check out Hanan Pacha. It is so good. It's beautiful, it's intense, and lovely, and wonderful. Coming up at number 6 is Score of Nightmares from Operus. So this is another shocking release for me because this is another band that skews more towards power metal, and this is very much a power metal band. The reason why I love this release so much is that it's the type of power metal that I feel doesn't show up that often anymore, and that is the dark side of power metal. Not only that, but it also exists on the side of symphonic metal that you don't hear hardly ever, which is so sad to me, and that is the fact that for a male-fronted power metal band, their lead singer, their frontman, is a fucking tenor. Oh, there need to be more tenors in the symphonic metal scene. There aren't that many of them. I can only name but this band and Ruins of Elysium that are fronted by tenors. And when I say tenors, I'm talking about like male opera singers. I know there are bands like Elithania, Therian, and Imperial Age that exist. I'm talking about bands that are strictly fronted by a male opera singer. Like, they're the sole singer, and there's not like multiple singers in the band. Discovered them through their record label, which I believe is, again, Pride and Joy, and I discovered them through the lyric video for their song Ruin, and I checked it out, and I was just like, right from the get-go, I was just like, okay, I like the tone of his voice. It's very different for like your typical power metal song. It's also a darker sound and everything, and then like after like the first verse and you get into like the first like good beefy part of the song and everything, the tenor starts to seep out into the song, and I was just like, oh yes. The deep richness of his voice is just I love it. Being a tenor myself, I just love it when there's a symphonic metal band that is fronted by a tenor. So it's just like, yes. Even though this is a power metal album, it's so different from other power metal bands because of the fact that it's so dark and it's also quite heavy. Because I feel like a lot of power metal bands like play more towards like thrash and like classic styled heavy metal bands, but this doesn't follow in those types of footsteps. It's very original, it's very fresh, and it's very dark, and I just love it. I love it so much. And my 3 favorite songs off the album are Lost, Ruin, and La Llorona. Coming up at number 5 is Summerland from Dool. For those of you who don't know Dool, they are a dark rock, doom, gothic rock metal band from the Netherlands. I discovered them several years ago through Charlotte Vessels of Delain. She talked about them on her Instagram one day and I decided to check them out, and this was right around the time when their previous album was released. But it had, I'm gonna butcher the pronunciation of this name because I'm pretty sure it's in Dutch and I don't speak Dutch, but I think it's called Ovena. And then the song The Alpha was also off that album, which I really enjoyed that particular song. That song's really good. If I had to compare their sound to like bands that exist, the best way that I can describe their sound is if Fleetwood Mac and Black Sabbath had a baby. I know that is a very bizarre like fusion of sounds. But when you listen to their music, like say like if you were to listen to their song Wolf Moon, you'll definitely be able to hear like those like Fleetwood Mac and then the Black Sabbath vibes in their music. It's dark and doomy while still being light and easy to listen to if you're just to put on like the instrumentals. Like if there was like instrumentals for these songs that existed for you to listen to, if you were to just listen to those instrumentals, it would be like something soft and easy that you can listen to. And Rihanna's voice is just so lovely. I love her voice so much because it's so different. She's a very androgynous person because of the fact that she was born intersex. So she has a very androgynous like appearance, and also a very androgynous sounding voice as well, which I just really love. It just has such a really beautiful, pretty, fun, but also an extremely dark and haunting atmosphere. And I just love this release so much. And my 3 favorite songs off this album are Wolf Moon, Summerland, the title track, and Dust and Shadow. So we're getting close to the end here. We're on number 4, which is Hope Springs Eternal from Snow White Blood. So this is a band that I recently featured here on my channel when I did my reaction to their song You Belong to Me, which is such a magnificent song. And the band actually saw my reaction video to that video, so that was exciting to see. I was really excited for this album because I really loved their debut EP, and so I had really high hopes for this release, and it did not disappoint. This album is stunning. It is so good. If you like Blackbriar but you wish that their music was a lot heavier and intense, this is the band for you. Speaking of which, like, their frontwoman Uli, I believe is how you pronounce her name, I do not know. She actually collaborated with Blackbriar on their song Snow White and Rose Red, which I love that song so much. It's probably my favorite song by Blackbriar. Bands are very similar, but like I said, Snow White Blood is a lot more intense, it's a lot more symphonic. Uli is a soprano. Like I said, if you want like a more intense version of Blackbriar, this is the band for you. Even though a lot of the songs have like dark undertones to them, they still find a way to make the songs like fun and easy to like digest, and I just really enjoy that aspect to their sound, because it's just like a song can be really dark, like talking about Rapunzel killing herself, but the song itself is like very fun and makes you like get into it and you have a good time, and then like the song ends with Rapunzel talking about how she's about to hang herself, and then you hear a gunshot, and it's just, whew. I'm shocked that it made it so far into my favorites, like so high up into the rankings so soon, because I shit you not, I've only been listening to this album but for maybe a month now at this point. So I haven't been listening to it for that long, and I'm already this obsessed with it. And something that I really do appreciate about this band is that even though Uli is a soprano in a symphonic metal band, they don't like use that aspect of her voice constantly. Like, they don't overuse it. My top 2 favorite songs off this album, they use those aspects of her voice at the right times. And speaking of my favorite songs, my 3 favorite songs off of this album are Drop a Stitch, Never Ending Waltz, and You Belong to Me. Coming up at number 3 is Oceans of Slumber's self-titled album. So when the singles first started rolling out for this release, I was a little bit worried because I just felt as if like the songs were very different, and I was worried that I wasn't going to be able to get into the full album because the songs, like I just said, are very different from their previous works, because it was a bit more on the prog side, and I was a bit worried that things weren't going to be as wonderful and amazing as they were as, say, The Banished Heart, because The Banished Heart has such a special place in my heart because of just how dark that album is. It is such a very dark album, and I had a feeling that this album wasn't going to be able to top it in that department, which it doesn't. It doesn't top the darkness of The Banished Heart, but it's still a dark album, and it's still amazing, and it still very much feels like an Oceans of Slumber release. It, like I said, it's still very different though, because I feel as if they definitely played with a lot of like southern tones to it, because the band is based in Texas, and there is like that bit of like a southern soul type of vibe that runs through some of the tracks on the album. This release, I feel as if it's like a really nice blend of winter and The Banished Heart, because Winter was very intense. It had a bit of that soul element to it, whereas The Banished Heart was just very dark, doomy, and sad and depressing throughout majority of that album. And this album is kind of like a nice blend between the two, because it has that prog soul element to it, but it also has that dark, doomy, gothic metal vibe to it. It's a really fun and great amalgamation of sounds, and I really love it for that. And like I said, it still very much feels like an Oceans of Slumber album from them, just very different, very evolved type of sound. And I also feel with this album you can really hear like different colors of Cammie's voice in this album. You can really tell that there has been like an extreme improvement with the power of her voice. And I also love like the growls and the screams on this album. There's just something about them that's just really good to me. It's just like they're so beefy. They're so beefy. And there's one song, I'm trying to remember what it's called off the top of my head, but I can't. But like the growl is just so low that it's almost like a Danny Filth, like deep low fry growl type of sound. And it's just like, it threw me off so much when I first heard that song, because it just like, it's so low and it just creeps in. Before I tell you guys my favorite songs off this release, I do want to talk about a exciting moment that I had the other day in regards to this release. So like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I did say that I posted my favorite releases of the year over on my Instagram, and whenever I do these posts, I do like to tag the bands that are in these posts. I was shocked to see like a few days before I made that post that Dauber from Oceans of Slumber started following me on Instagram. That threw me off a good bit. But then I got a comment like later that evening. Well, I say that evening, I think it was around 10 o'clock my time when I saw the comment. But yeah, the Oceans of Slumber Instagram page commented on the post saying, "Thank you so much. Cammie and I really enjoy your videos." And bitch, I am laying in my bed, and I was so glad I was laying in bed, because if I were to have been like sitting in my chair or doing something around the house and I saw that comment come in, I would have fallen down and been on the floor. Like, I started crying. And the reason why this channel exists is because of my love and passion for music. And so when bands that I love so much, like Oceans of Slumber, like see what it is that I do and they appreciate what it is that I do, it just makes me feel all warm and fuzzy inside. And my three favorite songs off this album are I Mourn These Yellowed Leaves, I Return to the Earth Below, and Pray for Fire, which I wish I could have done a reaction video to Pray for Fire. Oh my god, that song is stunning. It is so good. It's so dark. I love like towards the end of the song when Cammie is just speaking in such a low tone, and it's just, oh, it's so haunting and dark, and I love it. And I love the high notes that she's hitting that are softly in the background. It's just, ooh. It's time for album number 2, which is Lila H from Arkan. Arkan is a oriental death metal band from France that I discovered several years ago. I'm trying to remember how it was that I discovered this band. I think I discovered them through their record label, Season of Mist. I don't know if they're still signed to them, but I know when their 2016 album came out, Qassam, they were still signed to them. I think Season of Mist had talked about on their Facebook page that they had a lineup change, that they got a new frontman, a new lead singer, Manuel. And so I got curious and I decided to check them out, and I didn't find a song that he had done because I don't think they had released anything off of Qassam just yet at that point. But I found a song that came off the album prior to it, which that album is Sophia, which I do have a physical copy of it. I snagged it off of Amazon, I think last year, for $5. That song that I discovered though was Hayati, which is still one of my favorite songs by them. It's so beautiful and lovely, and the Sophia album in general is a very gorgeous album. But after really enjoying that song and knowing that like they have new music coming out with a new singer, I was really curious as to like what this band was capable of and how things were going to be different in comparison to like the few songs that I heard with Sarah. I really enjoyed the music. Qassam was definitely a really good release in 2016. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. When I found out that Arkan was releasing a new album this year, I was super excited because the first single that they released off the new album, I think it was either right at the beginning of the year or right at the end of last year when they released a single for Crawl, and I was blown away. I loved Sarah's era with the band, but Manuel's voice, he has got such a gorgeous voice. His voice is stunning. It is so pretty, and you can really like hear all the colors of his voice in this track. I also noticed one thing with this album as well. I haven't listened to Qassam in a minute, so I can't really speak for it on that album, but I can speak for it on Lila H, and that is, you can really hear Manuel's French accent on this album. I don't know why that's a big thing for me, but it is. It's just something that I noticed. You can really hear his French accent in this album. It's not a bad thing by any means whatsoever. It's just something that I noticed. But this album is very different from the releases that I've heard all the way through from them. Compared to like Qassam and Sophia, this album is very different from them. I did see in the comments that this album was going kind of sort of back to basics for them, like going back to like the sound that they had like on the album prior to Sophia. But at the same time, like with the songs that I've heard off of that album, it still has that bit of like a difference to it, because this album, although it still very much sounds like an Arkan album, it doesn't have nearly as strong of an oriental vibe to it. And also it sounds more like a progressive death metal album, which there's nothing wrong with that, because I love the fact that this album is very proggy. I mean, I'm a sucker for prog. I love the experimental nature of it, and this album very much has that. It is just really intense, in-your-face prog from start to finish, and I love it so, so much. Like, I can't get enough of this album. It's absolutely brilliant from start to finish, and it's beautiful, it's heavy, it's intense, it's in your face, and I just love it so, so much. They really did an amazing job with this release, and I was a bit worried that we were going to be seeing an album from them, because like I said, like it was announced like either at the end of last year or early this year that a new album was going to be coming from them, and then the pandemic happened, and then things got very, very quiet from them, and they started posting like lyric videos for like older songs of theirs on their YouTube channel. So I was just like, oh, is this new album not gonna happen? But it did, and I'm very, very happy that it did. My 3 favorite songs off the album are Crawl, Shameless Lies, and Black Decade. Well, I said it like they do in the song, Decade. Black Decade. But it is now time to cycle through the honorable mentions. There are quite a few honorable mentions this year. There were a lot of great albums that were released in 2020, the ones that did come out this year. And then there are some releases that were surprisingly able to happen, like some bands were worried that they weren't going to be able to come out, or that the releases weren't going to be successful because of the pandemic. One of them I actually have a physical copy of, and I'll quickly show it to you guys, and that is Glory Glory Apathy Took Helm from Vile Creature. This is a band that I actually discovered through Bandcamp when I was just looking through on Bandcamp Day. I ordered this guy the same day that I ordered my copy of Al Qassam, and I decided to just browse through Bandcamp just to see what all types of bands were on there. And I saw the cover artwork for this album, and I was just very intrigued because, I mean, look at this. Like, look at this artwork. It is so strange. It's so different. And, when you look at it, you're just like, okay, the band is called Vile Creature and it has like this kind of cover artwork. That's different. Like, what's the deal here? And it turns out that this band is made up by 2 non-binary people, and they make really good, like, sludgy, doomy black metal, and it's really good stuff. I really did enjoy this album. Like, the night I listened to this album, I bought it. Like, that is how much I love this release. And another release that I purchased this year, that came out this year, that didn't make it onto my rankings, and the only reason why it didn't make it onto my rankings is Not because of the fact that it's not good. I still love this album and I still love this release so, so much. It's just that I didn't gravitate towards it nearly as much as I thought that I might. And part of the reason why I don't gravitate towards it that much is because of the fact that it makes me sad. And that is Aaliyah's solo album. This is the, I think this was the storybook edition, digibook edition. But yeah, I really do love this release though. It's just absolutely beautiful and just so lovely and pretty. It's a, for the most part, like a dark ambient release. There are two different discs. There's the electric side, which is more so like a dark ambient album. And then you have the acoustic side, which are acoustic songs of some of the songs on the electric side. And then like some of Aaliyah's like older works from her project called All That Remains, as well as like her solo project, the solo project here. But that's enough of talking about the honorable mentions. I have been filming for about an hour and a half now. My feet and my legs are starting to kill me, so I'm ready to get this shit done and over with. But some of you guys won't be surprised to see this being my favorite album of the year. But honestly, even if there wasn't any bias, this probably still would have made #1 anyways. But yeah, Apocalypse and Chill by Delain is my favorite album of the year. But yeah, this is the Digipack edition because I got the limited edition box set for this album, which I think those are still available on Napalm Records' site. I think those are still available there. They might be. I know the box sets for their 10-year anniversary show, Live in Paradiso, those box sets are still available, and I'm low-key considering getting one. I am low-key considering one, even though I have like the DVD Blu-ray set already, like right here in my collection. Like I already have it. But I'm low-key considering getting the box set for it. Because I mean, like, it has a flag, and it's got a bunch of goodies in it. And the fact that I've heard a couple of the songs from this album live, oh, yes. Because for those of you who don't know, I got to see and meet Delain last year at the Masquerade in October 20th, 2019. Last concert that I ever went to. Because everything got canceled this year. Being able to hear Masters of Destiny, Burning Bridges, and Combustion live. Oh my god, Combustion live was so good. Hearing that live, before we even knew that that was gonna be a song on the album, like that, it was so brilliant. It was so much fun and just so good, and that song is so great to drive to, by the way. In my opinion, probably their best album that they've ever done. I know a lot of people really love April Rain, and that is their favorite release from them. But for me, it's this. And the reason why I say this is their best release is because of the fact that you can tell that they have really found their footing with this release. And also, you can really hear just how much Charlotte's voice has grown. Also really see it with the writing as well. Finally found what works for them and the sound that it is that they have been wanting to have and that they've been searching to have. They have finally found it with this release, and it is divine. It's kind of like what Charlotte said in some interviews, like Apocalypse and Chill, like the title of the album, like is there to describe like the types of songs on it. Like you have like social commentaries about how like humanity is bringing on the apocalypse and what it's like being in the apocalypse. Like to an extent, like this album came out at the right time because this album came out in February of this year, so a month before lockdown. So this album became very real very fast. Let's Dance hits very, very different now, considering that there are so many of these influencers out in LA having like house parties and everything, TikTok parties and shit. And it's just like, that song hits very differently now with that shit happening. Because I mean, like, that song is about, like, the world is coming to an end, but fuck it, we're gonna have a fucking rave. But the chill comes in because there are songs that are about, like, love and relationships and good times and everything. Like, staple Delain type songs. It's so beautiful and amazing, and it's just so wonderful just seeing where Delain is at now. And seeing what it is that they are doing now. I mean, for crying out loud, Charlotte screamed on a song on this album. Like, Giannis from Beast in Black is a guest singer on this album. Bruh. This release is wonderful. It's so good. It is such a great release. And I highly, highly encourage you guys, if you haven't listened to this album, to do yourselves a favor and do so. And my 3 songs off Apocalypse and Chill are Combustion, The Greatest Escape, and Burning Bridges. And yes, I do know that I mentioned Masters of Destiny earlier. The only reason why it didn't make it onto like the top 3 favorite songs off the album for like listing purposes and whatnot is because I made it onto my top 2 favorite songs off of Hunter's Moon, which was released last year. So it gets disqualified for making it onto like the post things and whatnot. So it doesn't get its special moment in this video because it got its special moment last year. But that is it, you guys. Those are my favorite releases of 2020. I have been here for an hour and 40 minutes talking about releases. Like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, this is going to be a fucking long one. What were some of your favorite releases of the year? Did any of my favorite releases of the year make it onto your list? Or are some of these releases that I mentioned today some of your new favorite releases? Let me know down in the comments below, because I'd like to know what you guys were listening to. I'm always down to check out new music and everything. I mean, hell, that's part of the reason why my music reactions exist. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I am ready to sit the fuck down because my legs and feet are killing me. But until I see you guys in my next video, whenever the hell that may be, goodbye.